So Paul's got a real history of working with its local community. So right back in the early 1900s, the rector at the time had bought what is now the Slug and Lettuce pub and had that as his mission hall, because he felt at that time that the parish at this end of the town, which was basically the parish of Fisherton, the village of Fisherton, was too posh for people from the local town to come out to. So at that point, he bought the Slug and Lettuce and developed that as a mission hall. So there's always been that sort of connection between the church and the local community. And we really picked that up, and we're encouraged by that sense of what God had done previously when we considered what we might do with what became SP2. And there was a sort of divide there as to how we got there. So part of the myth is that we were so engaged in our local community that it came from there. That's true to an extent. The other push factor really was that we needed new plant for our youth and children's work. And then amazingly, those two things came together. So as we started to research what was needed locally, we discovered a lot of issues of isolation, of single parents, of a pretty transient population as well. So there wasn't that sense necessarily of feeling they had a home and they had a base. And that really led us to explore more what we could do, not just to provide for our youth and children, but ultimately to provide a 6, even 7 days a week service to our local community and engage with them effectively and bring something of the good news to them on a daily basis.
SP2, I think probably the main thing that we're addressing is social isolation. So we see a lot of people who are really isolated for whatever reason. So whether you're a mum who's yourself, or whether you're disabled, or whether you're elderly, or whether you're sick, then people experience isolation. So I think in SP2 we see that process of people connecting, firstly with the volunteers, but then connecting with each other, and then maybe moving into groups and connecting with more people. Groups that meet within the building. So on a Monday there's a job club run by Salisbury City Church, which helps people with CVs and interviews and things like that. At the moment we're also running an art therapy course for 6 ladies to help them kind of move forward with difficult issues. On a Wednesday we run a group called Safe Haven, which is a group that works with women who have experienced abuse or violence. Sounds like quite a miserable group, but actually it's quite an optimistic group, so we work on self-esteem. CAP have been in and taught ladies about budgeting and kind of managing their money and things like that. So it's a really positive group. We run a life group on a Wednesday evening for people from believers to non-believers. And then on Friday we run a bit of an art group as well. We set up a life group really because some people were finding it difficult to kind of access church, but we're keen to know about God and keen to discuss issues of faith. So the life group, there's probably about between 20 and 30 people that come, and there are people who've had no experience and don't have a faith, to people who've been Christians for 30, 40 years. And it seems to work. It functions quite a lot as a family, really. Yeah. There's quite an active WhatsApp group that's quite encouraging, with prayer items and encouraging things in there. And recently one of the lads that comes along became a Christian, so it's great. We eat a lot together as well, and I think that's important. I think it's in some senses it's a doorway back into church, but in another sense it's almost a different congregation. So it's different for different people. Some people have made it into church either, whether that's just through social events that take place in the church, and a few have made it into services. But some would find actually the church building too inaccessible. It's quite a big space. There are a lot of people there. They don't know what the rules are. What's the rules with communion? Can I take it? Can I not? They sing together, and that's quite alien for some. For some it's been easier to. Church be more accessible, place where they feel safe, a place that they're familiar with, and almost where they know more what the rules are. So we're seeing people that are becoming Christians. There was a lady that actually we got involved with, who we held a wake here for somebody who had committed suicide. This was her friend, and at the time she was an atheist, but sort of a year further on she's become a Christian, and she would say that SP2 was the first place that she experienced Christianity and people living rightly, and that's a real testament. There are difficult times, I think. Sometimes in churches we can get so comfortable and we meet a set of people that we're familiar with, and sometimes out in the community people's real lives are quite traumatic, and it's hard, and sometimes the things they go through are agony really. And I think I get quite angry really at injustice. You see an awful lot of injustice, and yeah, sometimes it's hard emotionally, but I think a lot of people are looking for a saviour, and it's really important that I'm not that. There is only one saviour. So I think I feel that the mission really is to signpost to Jesus rather than be the solution, and there's a real pressure to be a solution. Probably my most favourite moment at SP2 was we had a guy who came in who was homeless, whose trainers were completely shot on the bottom, and they were leaking and they were wet and big holes in them. And I remembered that in the basement a few weeks previously somebody had given me a pair of brand new boots that they couldn't use. So I asked the man, you know, what shoe size are you? And he said he was a size 10. So I excitedly thought this is a good opportunity and dashed down to the basement, got these boots, but actually they were size 9. And I remember feeling quite disappointed, thinking, God, you've really let me down here, because he's a 10 and these are a 9. But I thought, well, let's try them anyway. So he tried the boots on, and they fitted perfectly. Now, as a teenager, I worked in for Clark's. Other shops are available, but I immediately dropped to deck completely inappropriately and had to feel round his toes to make sure that they did fit, because I was worried he was going to exchange a pair of shoes that fitted for ones that didn't, and this was going to be a problem. But actually they did fit perfectly, and it just amazed me, number one, that God knew what he needed before he did, because the boots had been there for 2 or 3 weeks. And then the second thing is that really God knew his shoe size better than he did, and that really amazed me, just really amazed me. And if this guy actually danced at the till, he physically danced at the till, because he had a brand new pair of leather boots, and the volunteer who brought them in was equally blessed too, because he was there watching him dance with these boots.